Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Alison Smith, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees: Landscaping Your Life to Get Back on Track. Now, Alison is a speaker, coach, facilitator, and trainer who has developed the process of landscaping your life as a method to help people get unstuck and get back into their flow. She works with teams as well as individuals in business contexts and outside. Since her own personal transformation 20 years ago, Alison has increasingly found the more unconventional tools to be more effective and powerful at bypassing the blocks and resistance that we have to moving forward in our lives. So let's welcome to the show, Alison Smith.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here again. I mean, we were talking, last year in regards to your new book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees. I mean, what a great book that is. And now we get to kind of follow up because, there's a lot of stuff going on.
There is certainly lots going on. Well, nature never stops, so there's always something new.
Well, hey, today is March 1st. I know people at this time of the year, they're kind of looking, going, I made all these New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year, and now here I am, maybe I've accomplished some, maybe not at all, and they start to get a little kind of discouraged.
Yeah, it's funny actually. If you think about it, do you think a seed or a plant sets New Year's resolutions when we do? Because all of the growth seems to be about now, isn't it? About spring, about new growth then. So the more I work with this process, the more I'm wondering whether we should really be setting intentions either at the beginning of winter so that we let things, release things, and then things can percolate and then come up in spring, or to do it in spring. So I think now is a brilliant time to start thinking about resolutions, because everything has been quiet. Everything's been, it's been dark. We've been inside, it's getting lighter. Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on I suppose it all depends what part of the world you're in. I'm talking about spring, and people in the southern hemisphere will obviously be saying, yes, Alison, winter is on its way.
Well, and so before we get too far ahead, I'd love for you to share with us, what it was the inspiration behind your book, because your book really looks at things a completely different way than most people would even realize.
I think whatever book I wrote was always going to be coming at something from a tangent. Mm-hmm. The book arose, I think, because I want to share it with more people, the process with more people, because it works when I do it one-to-one, and therefore writing a book gets it out there. But in terms of the process, I was struggling to communicate to people at work about something and started using metaphor and realised that, that works. And then as I got more into personal development for myself, realised that if somebody told me what to do, I was a little resistant, and yet talk to me about metaphor, and suddenly I was able to see the wood for the trees. I was able to understand what I needed to do differently in a way that I couldn't if a person in front of me, with all good intent, was saying, well, this is what I think you should do differently. Mm-hmm. Because I think I'm a little resistant, and I'm a bit of a control freak, and no, I don't want anybody else telling me what to do. So I suppose a metaphor bypasses all that resistance I put up to hearing and getting advice from other people. And therefore, I've used it with other people and realised that it isn't just me it works with, and that it does work with everybody.
Well, I think a lot of people, while they may appreciate feedback, they don't like being told what to do.
Yeah. What was it? We teach what we need to learn most.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Now, I love how you brought this beautiful combination of using nature in metaphors, because you could have picked other metaphors, but you really have this deep connection with nature, and it's lovely to see in your videos, in your blogs, and the things that you write about, and it really helps people to get a deeper connection, I feel.
Yeah, and me, to be fair, a lot. When I think about where was the book written, half of the book was written outside in nature. Where do I go to? I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that where do we all go to on holiday? We go to nature. We don't go, oh, actually, what I'm going to do for my holiday is go and sit in a room and watch well, you might watch telly sometimes, but most people will actually go to the beach, or they're going to go for a walk. We naturally know that that's where we want to go, for R&R. And therefore, for me, why would we not want to use it as a coach? I mean, that's what I'm now calling it. Nature is our coach. Mm-hmm. It just enables us to go, you know what, I'm just going to go and have a word with my coach and have an excuse, if we need one, to go and sit on the beach or in a wood at lunchtime.
Yeah, what a beautiful way of really reconnecting with the things that feed our soul. And what are some, and I'd love for you to kind of share with us, like, what are some of the constant things that you see that are kind of like telltale signs that people might want to, and you talk about landscaping your life. Maybe they want to kind of look at life in a completely different way.
Oh, I think it's exactly that mm-hmm. Feeling. It's I don't know what to do. It's a lack of joy for life, I suppose. I mean, I had a session before Christmas with business leaders, and it was much more around planning for success. It was about how to avoid the pitfalls. So you can use it in order to keep on track. But I think a lot of the people, certainly people who come for coaching, have got to that point where the sayings in the book resonate because they feel lost, confused, lacking in energy, might even be in overwhelm, and just don't know what to do. And therefore, it's much easier then to be able to say, well, which of these sayings best describes how you are feeling currently? Because that's the idea of the book. It's a dip in when you're feeling lost, dip into just the chapter that resonates most at that time, and just follow what the chapter asks you to do. I had somebody who very nicely described the book as a first aid kit for the brain, because she was in that overwhelm, getting really, really stressed about exams, couldn't sleep, all of the normal signs of stress, and went, you know what? I can't see the wood for the trees. I just don't know what to do first. And she'd got my book, and she bought it because I'm a friend, so she thought, I'll buy it. And she didn't really think she'd ever pick it up. And she picked it up, and then the next day she's ringing me up going, oh my God, it's a first aid kit for the mind, because suddenly I could, I got a plan for my revision, and she went on to put a review on Amazon because she was so enthused, and she's now selling it to all of her clients. Every time I turn up for a massage, she turns around and says, oh, I've sold another book. Because she's recognising in her clients that they might say, I'm stuck in a rut or feel like a fish out of water. And because the process worked for her, then she's obviously wanting to share it with other people. So it's those sorts of situations, really. It's I don't know what to do, but yes, I can resonate with one of the sayings in the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, and do you find that people that are overly busy, they have like this busyness mentality going on, kind of are really some of your top clients that come to see you to make some changes?
The interesting thing is when we're busy, we end up running, we're still on the hamster wheel, and sometimes we get into crisis before we actually come and ask for help. So I'm very good at helping people when they're in that crisis point, I suppose. And I suppose what I'm hoping is the book gives somebody something to do before they get into crisis. Because I don't know whether that busyness, we're on the adrenaline-fueled activity, doesn't always allow us time to go, because we don't think we've got time to even think about solving the problem. We're just continuing to take action. It's that whole, no, I've got to do something. No, I couldn't possibly take time out to make it easier. I've got to do something. So a lot of people, I think, have come when either through ill health, they're being forced to take time out. Or somebody has sort of said, I think you should go and see Alison.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. So, what does nature teach us about taking time to ourselves and having that reflection and developing that inspiration?
The interesting thing on timing in nature is that everything's got a cycle. So day, is followed by night. You've got the seasons, and so actually, in one respect, it never stops. Because, you can't just stay at midday or stay at sunrise, because the next minute you're moving away from that into a different, into night, I suppose. So there is an element of it's never still, but actually it's never busy either, because there's a natural order of things. And I think so much of what we as humans do is to fight the natural order of things. I mean, I'm great for talking about being unconventional, but I think there's an element of, and there's a chapter in the book about going with the flow. You know what? We know when we're fighting the flow, and it's about making conscious decisions to be in the flow rather than that whole, it's midnight. No, but I want it to be day. Because that's how sometimes I think we relate to the world and our life. I now, in this situation, it's as if I'm trying to make it, the middle of the day, and it's actually the middle of the night. And yet we're there taking all that action, and it's wasted action, because the time, I mean, this is metaphorical, so it isn't necessarily that the time would be midday, but it's that, is there a better time to be taking this action? Is it about waiting until, because if you think about a seed, you plant the seed, you nurture the seed, you don't go and prod the seed and crack, or are you doing anything, little seed? And then you nurture it, and and yet we don't do that in life. We go, oh, well, I've sent that idea, I can do it about my book. Oh, I've sent the book out, why, I want people to be buying it. Well, yeah, but actually the plant, the seed was planted, and actually it takes time to harvest, and there's the nurturing to be done. So I think that's the thing that nature has to teach us, that there's the nurturing to do, and there's a timing to consider about when is the right time to start. What do we need to do in order to, before we have the benefits, I suppose, of our harvest? Because these days we're too quick to go, oh, I've taken action, so where's my, what do I get back now? Mm-hmm. And nature doesn't do that. Nature goes, I'm quite happy. I'm going to give you the most beautiful, blossoms in spring, and I'm going to give you beautiful fruits in the autumn, but don't expect me to be giving you the fruits. Don't start trying to say I want apples in here in the UK in, July. I haven't had time. I haven't done what I need to do with everything. The apples are going to be much better if you wait till October, November.
Well, and there's just that natural order of things, that it takes time for everything to germinate, to come to fruition. And I agree with you. I think a lot of people are so busy in I planted the seed, now where's my tree?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about things that where you get the fruits of the labours within the year. But you're right, in terms of, once you start looking at trees, I was in Avebury the other week. I mean, that tree's been there at least 100 years, if not more. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful, but it took a while to get to be that beautiful. At some point, it'll have been a lot smaller with not quite so many roots. And it's the roots that people like in that particular tree I'm thinking about.
Well, and, you talk about the metaphors that you use. It allows our mind, its logic, to kind of take a break, so we can get in touch with that inner wisdom. What does that look like?
In terms of a session, or?
Well, in terms of being able to kind of give our minds that break so we can hear that inner wisdom that nature's providing us.
I get you. it looks like, and this is the hardest thing. I mean, even when I'm in a room guiding people through it, our logic wants to kick in. So if I was to say, go for a walk and just notice what you notice about, nature, and all I want you to do is write down what you notice about nature. Yes, you are going to apply all of what you learn to your current situation that you want some insight to, but I just want you to notice what you notice about nature. Human nature, unfortunately, says, a friend and I did it the other week. We handed over going for a journey to our intuition. But at every junction where we went intuitively, do we want to go left or right? As soon as we got we're going left, we were there trying to say, well, that must mean that we're going to see the Kelpies, or we're not going to the Kelpies because the next turn took us away from that. And it's like our brain just wants to make sense of it. So, and that's not what the process is about. The process is about invite logic to go for a bit of a sleep, to go for a bit of a rest, and to just write what you notice about the patterns in nature. So you might go for a walk one time and notice, the tide, and think about, well, what do we know about the tide? And literally, you might want to draw down what you know about the tide in terms of its effects by the moon. There's a high tide, a low tide, a middle tide, a high tide. So it's allowing, I suppose it is giving you, I think the reason it works is it is sort of giving your logic something to do. But what you're saying is, I don't want you to apply it to your real life situation. I want you to use your brain to come up with, what do you know about nature? And the inner wisdom bit is the fact that you will notice what you need to notice at that moment in time that's most of use to you. So you might not notice the tide if actually it's about the sand, and something about the sand or turning a corner is of more use to you in that moment than trying to come up with a whole load of information about the tide. Mm-hmm. So the process is about sticking with the metaphor as long as possible. And that is the bit that I can't get over in the book enough. I would like me to sort of pop up every minute and go, don't forget, I want you to keep. I mean, it does say that in the book quite a bit, but there's an element of, even in workshops, people will come back to me and say, well, that won't work. It's like, hang on a minute, we haven't even got to the solution bit yet. I just want you to think about, if you cannot see the wood for the trees, what would you do in a real wood? And it's not, well, I don't know. I haven't got a map for my life. No, I don't want to know whether you've got a map for your life. I want to know, what would you do in a real wood? Oh, I'd have a map. Okay, that's only one thing. Now let's come up with another 100 things possibly about what you would do in a wood if you couldn't see it for the trees. Mm. And you literally, and I am loving that since I've written the book, the more I engage with people about that specific saying, the more solutions we come up with. Well, and the other week, somebody said they were going to flood the wood. It's like, oh. And then, of course, the idea would be to then take all of these hundreds of ideas and go, well, okay, so which one of those, or what does each one of those mean in relation to my current situation?
Well, what if someone feels that they are stuck? Mm-hmm. And in a place where they're like, okay, I could see I'm kind of in this nature place, but I just feel like I'm up to my knees in mud. I can't get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, if you were with me, I'd be very, very inclined to go and find some mud in order to get you up to your knees in the mud, because there's nothing so enlightening of actually enacting how it is you're feeling, because by turning a corner, by getting out of the rut, by getting out of the mud, it's as if it opens the door in your head, because your head goes, I'm stuck in a rut, or I'm stuck in the mud. But then the very act of getting out of that rut or getting out of that mud shifts something internally, because if it's possible physically and metaphorically, it's possible in reality in that situation. And so it then opens up. It's like somewhere in your brain, it's like it opens up the possibility that you're not as stuck as you think. And that's what this book's about. The book's about, we use these sayings when we absolutely feel as if we're right up against that sort of brick wall going, I don't know what to do. And yet there's a part of us, that inner wisdom, that's going, but it feels like you can't see the wood for the trees, or it feels like you're out on a limb. How would it be if that was a hint from your inner wisdom about where the solution lies? Because your inner wisdom doesn't talk, well, some people it might talk to, but for most people, our inner wisdom or soul talks in metaphor. So it's as if it's giving us the metaphor in the hope that we notice that that's a hint, and if we follow that hint, we'll find the solution.
And how important is that? Because a lot of times people, they want to get to a place where they're able to work through different situations themselves. They want to, in a sense, be their own guru, and use their inner knowledge. But it does take some practice in getting there where you can hear that inner voice that says, okay, these are, if you're looking to go right and left and you don't know what to do and everything's a bad decision, how do you navigate from there?
I suppose it would then be about going back to you used the word navigate. So there is an element of observing the language somebody uses to describe that state of stuckness. So because you've used the word navigate, then I would, if you were my client, be saying, okay, so how do you navigate generally? We either have a map or we might have GPS. And, actually, GPS is faulty because, I don't think that my intuition is making the right decision. So my internal GPS is faulty. So what would you do with a normal? So that's the sort of conversation you might have in terms of, okay, so what do you, actually, the reason my GPS is out of, certainly mine in my car, is I use my iPhone these days. So actually my GPS is at least 10 years out of date. So I'd then be asking, well, how do you update the software? And so then it would be about, well, to update my software for intuition, I just need to try little things. I need to observe what a yes and no is and get in touch with myself, really, in order to be able to then start to trust that intuition for bigger things. Now, that's me going off down a tangent that might not make sense to some people, because somebody else might go, I need a map. Well, okay, so are you going to buy a map? Is it going to be a map to walk? Is it going to be a map to drive? Is it 1 inch to a kilometre, a mile, etc., etc.? So then you have a different conversation about the map, and then I suppose individually it's about, well, how do you then translate that insight into an action plan that makes a difference in the real life situation? For some people, just that conversation will have shifted something. For other people, they may need to, write down, I suppose, the process for using their own internal sat-nav, or they may need to draw a map. Or do a collage. So there's lots of different ways, and in the book there's numerous different ways of sort of, how do you call it, landing that insight, really. What does that mean in reality? It's all very well going, the timing's wrong, I'm trying to do this. I had the insight the other week that I was never finishing anything because I just love sunrises. So all I'm ever doing is going on about sunrise and another sunrise and another sunrise. So the insight was, I never allow anything to sort of grow because I'm constantly doing that, starting it all over again. But I suppose the coaching bit then comes into, well, okay, so how do I translate that? What does that look like? Oh, well, actually, sometimes it's just about me continuing to do the actions I said I was going to do, rather than go, this isn't working, I'll start again. It's following it through. And so therefore starting to notice the pattern of, oh no, this is one of those sunrise patterns again. And actually, if I'm always doing, where I live, I get to see the sunrise. So there is an element of that in it. But how often do I go and see a sunset? Very rarely. But the insight there is, well, how often am I finishing anything then? Or how much am I allowing anything to die down? If all I'm, perhaps the reason I'm tired is all I'm ever doing is that, oh, wow, wonderful sunrise. Oh, wow, wonderful sunrise. As I'm coaching myself now, it's that whole, that's why you're tired.
Well, if you're constantly stuck in the beginning of things all the time and the excitement in the beginning, there really is no time to let things rest.
No.
Although you do get beautiful sunrises, I'll give you that.
We've had quite a few, sort of the end of last year and beginning of this, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. Even the blogs I write, I can write it with an intention of sharing, but it ends up being, a self-discovery exploration because I can only notice things that make sense to me. So, somebody the other week said something about flooding the wood. Well, I'd never thought to flood the wood, but to them, if you can't see the wood for the trees, flooding the wood. Oh, actually, you could get a boat then, couldn't you? And then, for me, even as I imagine flooding the wood and what that does, I calm down. So there is an element of, I suppose that's the other aspect of it, is that sometimes we'll each see something different, and sometimes it's really useful to have somebody else say something about the environment, to notice and go, but you haven't turned that corner. What is it? Why is it that you're resisting to going in that direction? Or there's this most beautiful sunrise going on, and why have you not even mentioned the sunrise? Because actually, if you look at photographs, it's really interesting on Instagram because I very rarely put pictures of me on. It's taken me ages to actually put myself in front of the camera to do the video blogs. But actually, there's some meaning in that in terms of if you're looking at nature, are you always trying to put yourself in front of nature, or are you admiring nature? Are you wanting to put houses in it? All of those characteristics are patterns, and it's all patterns that we can then use about, well, how does that apply with life? If I'm never putting myself in front of the camera when I'm taking a picture of a landscape, is that why I sometimes take a few steps backwards to sell my business?
Well, I don't know. I think you have some great courage after seeing you go into the ocean. And I know it's a little chilly on your coastline. It's I thought that took great courage and bravery to do that.
Well, and since I've been swimming, my body image is, I used to be quite worried about, having pictures of lumps and bumps. But, when you've got a wetsuit, I seem to be quite happy about having video blogs of, on LinkedIn, video blogs of me in a wetsuit. It's like, what?
It provides such a good metaphor for people that are looking to move their life beyond the boundaries of what they've kind of kept them, in this kind of safe little bubble. On that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Alison Smith in regards to her new book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees, Landscaping Your Life to Get Back on Track. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. teaching beyond conventional wisdom. Her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Alison Smith, and she's sharing with us her new book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees, Landscaping Your Life to Get Back on Track. So Alison, before we left for break, you kind of touched on something I would like to kind of dive deeper into. You talked about reoccurring patterns. So what does it tell us when these happen? And it could be in our life, at work. What is this really trying to tell us when we see reoccurring patterns in our life?
Good question. Well, I suppose those that are on the path of sort of self-development would say, oh, right, that's something for me to work on. But there's two different responses, I suppose. The response is blaming the other person for the pattern. And then there's the taking responsibility for, oh, this is a pattern. What does that mean? Why is that? Is it a helpful pattern? Is it not a helpful pattern? How do I relate to that? Is it something that I'd like to release? You know, I can keep laughing and joking about my need for control, but I don't seem to be jumping to do anything about it. Because it serves me. I mean, you know, actually, if we didn't have patterns, if we didn't have routines in life, we couldn't survive, because everything then would have to be thought about. And we don't have enough energy in any day to be able to think about every single thing we do. So some of it does go onto automatic pilot. And so it's about, for me, recognizing when, because some people on workshops will sort of say, well, you know, well, I don't want to change how I'm thinking. It's like, that's fine. You don't have to. I'm not asking or telling anybody to change, other than ask the question, are you achieving what you want to achieve? Because if you're achieving what you want to achieve, then you don't need to think about any of this. If for some reason you're not achieving what you want, whether that's in the relationship, at work, health, then it's about, well, okay, how am I contributing to this, and what actions can I take to change the patterns that I've got in relation to that particular aspect? So, and the hardest thing is because we get angry with the other person. And I find this hard, you know, it's much easier for me to blame the other person and get really annoyed. But the angrier I get with the other person, the more for me it's a signal that it's my pattern. What button is it that action is pressing in me that I haven't dealt with? Because I shouldn't be this angry. I should just be able to go, that's unacceptable, and work away. Rather than go, woo, how dare you? It's like, no, the enlightened ones would just go, well, thank you for that opinion. I don't want to share that opinion, or that's not respectful, and I'm not saying I've got there at all, but there is something that more angry we get, the more it's about what we need to do. It's a sign of something inside that is shouting that it's not happy, but it's not at the other person, it's us. Why have I allowed that person to do that to me? Why have I yet again been at the receiving end of that behaviour? Because invariably it's not just that one person that's done that. It's like, this has happened again. Well, fine. What do I need to do in order to change my relationship with that behaviour I'm getting? Because as soon as I've solved that problem, that behaviour will not be there. And that's the spooky thing. I mean, you can say, no, that person is never going to change. It's all that person. And then we deal with that behaviour, and suddenly that person doesn't demonstrate that behaviour. Mm. Or that person disappears from my life, one or the other. But that spooks me out every time. Even when I'm doing it on me, and I know the philosophy of it. And yet I still go, what? You mean? Oh. They're not really that selfish. Or whatever it is I'm accusing them of. It's just that I've changed my relationship with whatever it is, because sometimes we get annoyed with people because we want to be more, we need to demonstrate more of that behavior. I'm really good at work because I work for other clients and I work for myself, and I'm really good at putting everybody else's, needs ahead of mine. Mm-hmm. And so therefore my little bit gets, squeezed into a smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I get annoyed when somebody's, in my opinion, selfish for putting their stuff first. Well, how dare they do that to me? Well, they're not doing it to me. They're doing what I am angry that I'm not doing enough of. That's this week's learning.
Well, and to use your metaphor, it's interesting. It's like, one tree doesn't get angry at the next tree because it got taller, There's no contest,
Well, there isn't. It's like, we only have to go on Instagram and look at all those beautiful trees, there isn't just the only beautiful tree, and that beautiful tree isn't trying to prove that it's the most beautiful tree. It's just being itself. Mm-hmm.
Just it didn't say, "Well, I've arrived to enlightenment. Now I've reached the sky."
Well, absolutely. I mean, it is. I mean, it's hard because it does require thought when we're judging others or when things aren't going as we'd like. And it's the hardest thing because some people will come along for a session with no intention whatsoever of taking responsibility for the outcome they're getting. They just want to come to a coaching session and be told that they're right and the other person's wrong. And I'm not saying that the behaviours that they're getting aren't unacceptable in some instances, mm-hmm. but the only person we can change is ourselves. I can't change somebody else. I have to change my reaction if what that other person is doing is unresourceful, unhelpful, or stopping me achieving what I want in life.
Well, one of the things I really appreciate about your book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees, it helps people gain a new perspective, because that's typically when we have issues in life or when things are going wrong or stuff is kind of going sideways or we feel stuck, and you've talked about this, is a lot of times it's our perspective that we bring to the table that keeps us there.
Yeah. The best or the quickest method I've ever had is to just go and turn a corner. I sent some guys out. We'd done a workshop outside in the summer, and I was doing something with some of their colleagues, and I just said to them, look, just take put the problem to the back of your mind, and I just want you to go down that path, turn the corner so that you can't see us here, and then just come back. And I do this with clients, but I just sort of sent them on the way, and when I was doing something with these other their colleagues, and they came back and looked at me as if I was completely mad because they felt differently about the situations. It's like, well, because exactly as you've just said, it's a different perspective. As soon as you've turned the corner on a situation, metaphorically, But what I'm worrying about now isn't there. I can't even see it around the corner. It's a completely different perspective. Then there's one corner that I use quite a lot, only because it's 5 minutes from the house, and it's a nice corner. It's got really juicy things to see the other side of it. Mm-hmm. But for me, I can't encourage people enough to just go and find in nature, really, rather than in a street. Well, it would work in a street, but in nature, go and find a corner and just take the situation you'd like more insight with you around that corner and just notice what you notice. Because something will shift. And it will be surprising, because these guys came back and just looked at me and went, well, what? How did that work? And I think that's the problem. Well, it's not a problem, but it's a challenge with this process, because I think it's obviously clear as day that it should work. But other people are going, but this is a bit weird, and why on earth would that work? And therefore I send them on round a corner, and they go, but that worked. I feel differently about it. This is no longer a problem. Why did I think it was a problem? And in the book it talks about that sometimes it can be that quick. Because our inner wisdom wants the best for us, and our inner wisdom is there shouting and going, yeah, turn the corner. And then something shifts in our head, because invariably we can't see the wood for the trees because there's a mindset way of being, a routine, I suppose, that is stopping us seeing the solutions. So, because we're too busy, or we're whatever the reason is that we just need to turn that reason off, because we will then see the solution. It is never outside us as much as other people can help us. But this process absolutely enables us, with nature's help, to notice the difference that will make the difference, to be able to move from stuck to back on track, whatever that looks like. Mm.
So is that part of developing a positive landscape in our lives, is really kind of shifting that perception, that focus that we have?
Yeah, yes, I mean, it's interesting that you could actually draw a landscape of your life in order to be able to notice where you spend a lot of the time. So it could be, right, if you were to draw a landscape that represented your life, what would it be? And I suppose mine would have these sunrises, wouldn't they? And mine would have sea. Now, it is interesting. A lot of my house is full of pictures of the sea or water. I've got water out of my window, and I have a sunrise. But actually, if I was to draw a map of my life, then I'd need a few mountains, and I don't know that I ever climb many mountains. And where's that dark wood that I go and hide in? And so it would be about sort of just drawing it and going, yeah, but I don't always do all of that. And where's the river? Because, if there's an ocean, where's the river? And do I sometimes try to go back up the river? And so you can draw it, and then you can use that drawing as a, well, okay, where am I today? Oh, actually, I've gone here. Well, where is a better place for me to be in order to achieve the objective I want? Because sometimes all we have to do is envisage the landscape. So I suppose me sharing the fact that I like water and I like sunrises, then as much as I'm going, oh, well, it's a counter to me always finishing things. But when I'm in an office and I can't see any of those things, then why don't I look at a photograph in order to connect into that ocean peace. Why is it that I've started swimming? Because I've got a connection with the ocean. So if I've got a connection with the ocean, then you could argue that more of the solutions I'm going to find when I'm connected with the ocean. So I just need to take a bit of the ocean with me in a picture wherever I go.
Well, I think that's so important for people that really do feel that deep connection, could be with mountains or rivers or lakes or deserts or the ocean, that they can take something that will actually bring them back to that place, as you're kind of talking about, that kind of reconnects them.
Definitely, because at some level, there's a part of you that's resonating with that landscape. And if you can, I suppose, check that it's a landscape that gives you, enables you to flourish and sustains you, then absolutely take it with you and envisage it. Have it there with you so that you can bring it out of your pocket when you've forgotten that connection.
Well, and we talked about this when we kind of first started our discussion today, and I'd like for you to expand on it a little bit more. When we talk about sowing seeds, especially when we're talking about sowing seeds in a positive landscape, what does that look like?
Well, for me, the interesting thing is that we need to think about what seeds we're going to sow first. So there is something about thinking about what harvest do we want and when. Because you mentioned earlier about the tree. It's like, well, actually, if I'm going to plant an oak tree, my harvest isn't in a few months' time, it's a longer period of time away. And is there something that I can do while I'm waiting for that? So it could be that I'm going to, so there is an element of, and I suspect we need to think about it metaphorically and then come back to it later. But it's that whole, so what's the harvest I want? Well, I'd like a big oak tree at some point down the road. But in the interim, I'm going to have some other, so there is an element of what do I want? But the other thing about seeds is that you never really only sow one seed and expect that seed to be the seed that is going to deliver you what it is that you want. Mm-hmm. Farmers or whatever will put lots of seeds down knowing that not all of them will grow, and or they'll end up having to prick them out or something so that yes, you will get more of them growing, and then you just have to take some out. How many acorns does an oak tree put out? It knows that not everyone is going to land in the right place, etc., etc. So there is an element of we need to know what the harvest is that we're aiming for to be able to know what seed to sow. Then it's about sowing more seeds than we think we need, and then it's about nurturing those seeds, because in a real life, that a seed isn't going to necessarily, I know seeds can grow in the most, obscure of places, but to give the seed the best chance of growing, then it needs nutrients in the soil. So one of my biggest ahas recently was about can't see the wood for the trees is irrelevant if the soil that those trees are on are not nutrient abundant. So actually sometimes we need to work on the soil first. So there's an element of, nurturing the soil, and then obviously, which then would and watering and allowing the seed to grow. And then it's about giving the seed what it needs. So sometimes, certainly here in Scotland, the seed might not be able to go out into the, outside until June because we still have frosts till then. So it's about, or it might be staking, or it might be that it just needs a bit more watering, or it needs fertilizing. So, and I think sometimes that's what we forget about when we're there saying, this is what I want to have happen in our life, because we don't do what we would do to a real seed. So perhaps there is something about picking any seed, buying a seed pack, following the instructions, and knowing that as you are doing that to that seed, that is what you are doing to your idea, to whatever it is, your goal, whatever it is you want to achieve in life. Now, I would say that you shouldn't perhaps do it on one of those seeds where it grows in 6 weeks, because that actually requires you to, like there's some lettuce, isn't there, that you can sow and reap the benefits within 6 weeks. That might work for some people, but I suspect something where you grow it, you sow it, in spring, and you nurture it over the summer into autumn, would enable you, every time you're looking at it, every time you're watering it, to unconsciously know that as you're doing that, that's what you're doing with your goal. Because as you were doing that, then you'd go, oh, have I watered my goal this week? Have I given it some nutrients? Oh, actually, no, my goal. Sorry. My goal, well, I'm just thinking about where my goal is. So my goal is that I've got a house that's sort of north and south facing. And, my goal is more than likely in I haven't watered it recently, and it's certainly not on the windowsill in front of the sun. So it's those sorts of things where it's by thinking about, I need to put I need to put this seed in sunlight. Oh, actually, we need to protect it from the frost. By doing those things, it enables us to then unconsciously go, well, oh, okay, so how do I protect my goal from the frost? Oh, okay, perhaps I don't need to tell every man and his dog about it, because I'll then get the naysayers. So perhaps I'll just choose to tell, or how do I nurture my goal? Right, yeah. Well, I need a lovely vision of what it's going to look like. I'm going to talk to people who have made this goal have realised the goal. So I suppose it's about keeping it alive, because goals are really easy for us to throw the seeds out and forget we've even done it, because life gets in the way and we start on other things like mowing the lawn or whatever. And so I think there's something about nature encouraging us to have that constant connection with it in order for us to have a constant connection with an abundant life, I suppose, a sustainable life, one that allows us that. I suppose there's also something about that connection to nature. I mean, yes, we're using the connection to nature to solve problems, but for me, there's also an underlying, and I think that's why Findhorn published the book, there's also an underlying premise of this book that if we got more connected to nature, then life would be easier.
Well, and there seems to be that connection, because, I mean, the body's from nature. When we talk about, they say at the end, we go back to nature. So having that connection is something that people have been getting more and more away from, but they need more desperately.
I think so, definitely. And I don't like in the summer we had such a brilliant for England. We had quite a nice summer, and so every workshop I did, I'm there saying, okay, is everybody happy that we spend at least one of the sessions over the next couple of days outside? And invariably it was on day 2, so I allowed people to bring the right shoes, the right coats or whatever. And we also had a rule that said if anybody got cold, then we came in. So it wasn't about keeping everybody out there uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But they all said, well, we really enjoyed that. Why don't I do that more? We got good, people were participating, they were getting better ideas. So there is something about nature enables us to do those things. And yet we seem to think that, we go to work in order to cut off from that, rather than go, no, we have the capacity to connect in with that and take it to work with us and do it when we're at work.
Yeah, that's so important. That really is. Well, and so, oh my goodness, we could talk for days. That would be easy for us. Because I mean, you really bring about a new perspective when it comes to nature, when it comes to dealing with problems in our lives, and how to go ahead and overcome those or work through these challenges. What are some ways that people can connect with you, and how do you work with people? If someone says, hey, you know what, I've got the book, but I still feel a little stuck, how do they work with you?
We can do it by coaching. One of the things that I'm hoping to do in 2019 is start to do some more podcasts and even some online workshops so that people sort of further afield can tap in. I mean, obviously, one-to-one coaching we can do remotely. But I think what I'm aiming to do, and that's that goal that's sitting on the out there facing north. So I need to get my little seed and put it in the window to say, yeah, let's do more workshops. Because at the moment, most of the workshops are in the UK, and certainly, I've got all the ones I can think of have all been fairly locally in Scotland. So, but I am always posting, as you know, on Instagram, Facebook. There'll certainly be more activity on YouTube again. And so for me, it's about, in order to just be prompted, the book helps, but in order to be prompted and have a regular update on, I hadn't thought about it like that, then the hashtag landscaping your life. So the hashtag landscaping your life should find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And then, landscaping your life, Alison Smith will find me on all of those anyway. But I think the easiest thing is the hashtag. And then, and engage there. One of the other things is I'm thinking about setting up a private Facebook group. But again, it's that seed. See, now I've committed to this, aren't I? See, you need to commit to this. It's like, okay, I've just said I'm going to set up a Facebook group.
I'm sure there's going to be lots of great tidbits there when that does come to fruition. Because you plant the seed, it's going to take a little while for that to germinate. So,
thank you for that reminder. I need that constantly. Yes, Alison.
So if people are looking to work with you, you work with people all over the world. It's not just local, people that are in the UK. It's all over the world.
Yeah, I do workshops. Quite often. I suppose most of my work is actually with businesses and doing workshops with businesses. And therefore some coaching comes out of that. And therefore there is some work, and perhaps the book is more aimed at the audience where it's one-to-one coaching.
And if they want to just schedule one-on-one coaching, they can just bypass all that and just do that, right?
Absolutely. Oh God. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So do all that. Okay. Well, Alison, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And as you say, we can talk.
That's not our problem. Well, thank you, Alison. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you. And of course, to talk about your new book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees, Landscaping Your Life to Get Back on Track. Again, you can connect with Alison at Alison Smith, landscapingyourlife.blogspot.com, and we'll have the link below. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.